Bruce Penhall, twice World Speedway champion, 1981 and 1982, and of course that world title in 1981 was the last world final ever held at the famous old Wembley Stadium. There must have been, what, 80 or 90,000 people there that night?
What a night that was.
Yeah, what are your recollections?
You know what, it's like sometimes we take things for granted, and I'm 56 years old right now, and you know, it was the best time of my life, apart from having kids and being married, but you know, the crowd and the English fans and the European fans and the horns and the banners, and to be able to win it was just an incredible fortune for me and a blessing. And you know what, it's a shame that there isn't Speedway at Wembley anymore, but it's kind of a good thing because I was maybe the last guy to win it there. Yeah,
nobody can ever take that away from you.
Yeah.
And then of course the following year was in Los Angeles, and another very famous world final when there was a clash with England's Kenny Carter, which was controversial. And even all these years later, can you explain your view of that incident, Bruce?
Yeah, you know what, yeah. I think probably people talk more about the 82 World Final because of that incident than the 81 World Final at Wembley. You know, it was, when we go out as racers, one thing in mind, you know, we have the biggest heart and what we want to do is win, okay? And we're going to probably reach out and take quite a few more little steps than we normally would on a regular night. The World Championship is the World Championship, and back in those days it was one-off. We didn't have the GP system, and you know, every single one of those heats meant something. And Kenny and I, as everyone knows, we weren't the best of friends, okay? Basically, I really couldn't stand him. He was a great racer, yeah. Don't get me wrong, and I have a ton of respect for him as a racer, but I made a mistake early in the race because I thought more about Kenny Carter than getting out of the start and running my own race. I was more concerned about Kenny than Phil Crump or PC. And tapes went up and I found myself in third right from the get-go, and then I found myself just battling Kenny. And you know what, we tussled and we locked handlebars going out of turn 4 all the way down the front straightaway, and he left himself open a little bit going into turn 1 and 2, left the door open, and I got underneath him. And was I hard? Absolutely, without a doubt. Did I intentionally hit him? Absolutely not. In fact, if we go back and look at the camera view from the Chips people were there back in those days, MGM, and we went and looked at it on the big screen, and I never touched Kenny. Did I leave him any room? No way. And I wasn't about to leave him any room. And to this day, I wouldn't leave him any room.
So it was a tough racing incident, which
right.
is what the World Final was all about.
It's what it's all about. We're there to win races, and again, it's a one-off, and we don't have another chance. This is where we have to make it happen. It could have went the complete opposite way for me. I could have been excluded, and then I would have found myself battling for 3rd or 4th position. So it was a tough night, and of course I'm going to say that I think the referee made the right decision. Of course I'm going to say that, but by viewing the tapes and viewing what we saw, I didn't touch Kenny.
What did it mean to you to stand on the podium as world champion in your home country?
Well, and we haven't had a world championship back in the United States since then. We're hoping one of these days soon that we can get maybe one of the GPs there. But it meant a lot to me because I'd won it in 81, and this was my sport. I just love Speedway, and I wanted so badly to win it again, and then of course to win it in my own country. It meant a ton to me. And we were shooting Chips at the time because I was about to retire. So they actually, the Chips people had already written the script that I was to win it before I even raced in it. So there was a lot of pressure, not only to have it in America, to win it the year before, and then for all the television people to be there. It was tough for me. But you know what, I love Speedway, and all I wanted to do was win. It meant everything in the world to me.
And then, of course, you brought your career to a halt, and you pursued a career in Hollywood. Tell us about that, and was it the right thing to do? Did it turn out to be good for you?
You know, I wouldn't change anything. Was I an actor? Heck no. I was a racer. I've been a racer all my life. And I was given a great opportunity. I never expected, I never wanted to race Speedway all my life. You know, I set out to do one thing, and that was first and foremost to become national champion. And then when I found myself racing in a world championship atmosphere when I moved to England, I mean, that was my heart. That's all I wanted to do, was to become world champion. And I didn't want to race all my life. I just wanted to win, and then the opportunity came up to win it again. I'm really a family guy. I really miss being at home. I miss my family. I miss California, but it didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do and pursuing what I wanted. And I wouldn't change anything. Did I make the right decision? I think so. Am I an actor? No, I'm not an actor. I did my best. The show was great for me. I had a wonderful experience. I worked on several shows after that. But yeah, I think it was the right decision for me.
Tell us how you first come across to Europe and join Cradley Heath, of course, and how your whole career in Europe started. How did it come about? Who brought you across? How did it all happen?
It started, you know, with Ivan and Barry with their troupe. They used to call it the troupe, and they would send a team of Europeans and British boys back to New Zealand, Australia, and I was invited to go back to New Zealand, Australia and race. And you know, that's kind of when I really found that there's a bigger life than American Speedway. I think American Speedway back in those days was the best training ground that I could ever have, racing on small tracks. And it even shows that, like Greg Hancock and Billy Hamill, Samuel Malenko, and the list goes on, Boogaloo, Bobby Schwartz. It's a great training facility, but to become world champion, you have to live, back in those days it was Britain. You had to live in the UK, you had to race the British League, you had to race in Germany every single weekend if you wanted to become world champion. And that was my life. And I just, you know, I was given the opportunity by Ivan and Barry, and it was the biggest thing in the world for me to see and to actually experience.
And it was at a time as well where Cradley Heath was possibly more unfashionable. They were never successful. And I do recall it coincided, your arrival coincided with a time where you transformed, along with the management and your colleagues, a club that was less glamorous into title winners and cup winners and a glamour club. Would that be a fair comment?
Absolutely. I think that, you know, I didn't have a clue of what was going on back in Britain at the time. All I was a racer. And, you know, talking to good friends of mine, PC, Chris Pusey at the time, you know, Dougie Wire, we were traveling in New Zealand, Australia, and they were the ones that were filling me in about British Speedway. And they helped me put a deal together. Dan McCormick was just a gem of a guy. You know, he was honest to me. Everything he said he was going to do, he did. And Cradley was my home away from home. The fans there, they took me under their wings. They loved me and they embraced everything that I did, and I did the same. When I left, I don't think I left on good terms as far as the fans go, but I had to look after Bruce at the time, and this was my decision. But you know, to this day, I wish there was a track back at Cradley Heath, and it was some of the best times of my life. I can remember some of the supporters back in the day. If one of the riders would knock on us, they would be lucky to get out of that stadium. I'm serious. And they used to tell me stories about that until I saw it myself, and I was like amazed. But that was British Speedway back in the day. They loved their riders, they loved their team. Whatever you do, don't mess with their team. And that was so Cradley Heath, and I really miss it.
So what would you say were the highlights and the low points of your career, Bruce?
Well, fulfilling all my dreams, my wishes and my ambitions, becoming Paris champion with Bobby Schwartz in '81, 32 years ago here in Poland. It's been 32 years since I've been here in Poland, and what a change, and what a marvelous change. And then, of course, Wembley. You know, I'm one of those guys that can say now and look back now and say, I actually won a world championship. There's guys that were so good back in the day, like Dave Jessup, that can't say that. That certainly deserved it. But I can say that I won a world champion. I can say that I won it in Wembley in front of 90,000 people. I can say that I did it back to back. You know, those were the highlights of my life. And working is what really wasn't a job, but it was. Riding Speedway 150 nights out of the year was our schedule back in those days. And it was an incredible part of my life. I loved it. Low times, injuries probably. Breaking my ankle, seeing friends that passed away on a speedway bike, you know, Denny Pyatt, and there was others. Those are the low parts, you know, and you know, God forbid, that's just an unfortunate situation.
And just finally, Bruce, Speedway today. We talk about the Grand Prix. We see this magnificent stadium in Torham where we're sat now. I know there was Wembley back in the day, but that was for one night of the year. And the Grand Prix now with stadiums like here, with Copenhagen, with Cardiff, with Stockholm, as we've seen recently. America doing well in the World Cup again this year as well. How do you sum up your thoughts on Speedway now as opposed to back in your day?
You know, it's obviously really changed. I love the GP system. You know, it bums me out to see, you know, English Speedway not as popular as it was. Certainly the economy has everything to do with it, I think. It has a lot to do with it. Is there a future still in Speedway? I think so. To come and see Torrance and look at this stadium and wish that we had this back in the day, but you know, we got to ride at Wembley, and to us this is like a Wembley, but to have a purpose-built stadium for Speedway, I don't think was ever heard of back in the day. So for me to see this, to see Poland the way it is, to see Speedway in the GP system and what it's doing is incredible. And I hope that Speedway all around, including America, I don't think that American Speedway has ever been so low as it has over the last 5 years, and I see a rise in it, and I hope so, because this is a great sport. This is a great motorsport. It's exciting, and I can't wait to see it up on the upward ladder again.
Well, let's hope that next time we meet, perhaps it may be in America for a Grand Prix. You never know.
Thanks so much. Great to see you, Nigel.
Appreciate
it. Thank you.